Hi, ladies. We're going casual style tonight. Hope that's okay. So, I'm going to do a quick intro because I want you to hear what these women are here to tell you about. So, I'm not going to take much time, but I did want to just let you know how we came up with our theme because I'm really excited about it. Each time we do Sisterhood, I want to take time to pray over what our time will be. And so our team of people, of women, we started praying for this event, and I was just not settled on what we wanted to do. So I kept praying. For me, I just kept praying for direction. Nothing was right until I fell on the word of our theme for tonight, and it's victorious. And I felt like God gave me that word for tonight. So for someone in the room, it may not be for all of you. It may just be for one person. And we're okay with that. Because we know that God has a word for someone. And our theme, as you know, is victorious. Many of you already have the shirt, and you're wearing it tonight. Yay! So before we go into our panel, I just wanted to talk about the word victorious. So what does it mean to be victorious? According to the dictionary, the meaning is when you're victorious, you've won something. As women, we typically feel like we're not winning in life, right? Every day, we have so many things that we have to take care of. So basically, we don't feel like we're winning at things. And maybe that would include things like mom guilt, quality time with our spouse or with our children. Maybe we're struggling with keeping a peaceful and clutter-free home. All the time, I might add. I see so many reels of like women keeping their homes perfect, and I'm like, how do they do this? I don't know. And then we feel like we're failing at just getting everything done. As women, we have a lot to do. And so just checking all of those boxes off at the end of the day, I feel like we feel like we're failing sometimes. And so we have to realize that we can't do it all on our own, and that we have to find our strength in God. And our strength makes us victorious because we have God backing us up. The dictionary goes on to tell us that the victorious definition, it says, a victorious team is triumphant. A victorious team or person has achieved victory. They've won the game and defeated the other side. God is victorious. We need to find ourselves on God's team, the winning team. Isaiah 41:10, I think we have it up here. It says, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. Tonight, I've asked these amazing women to be here and share their story with you. Each one of them have different stories, and they've walked different paths. And so I want them to get to share with you how they lean to God so that He could make them victorious. So we're going to jump right in.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Yunt. I was raised in a Christian home. I was raised in a home with Bible-believing parents. My parents set an amazing example of what fully devoted Christians should look like. I witnessed both of my mom and dad immersed in God's Word and in private prayer time daily. We prayed as a family before every meal. My father led family devotions, every morning before we went to school at our kitchen table. We were in church every single time the doors were open, and I watched my mom and dad serve their Lord faithfully, volunteering countless hours. Sorry. Angel, I made it 3 lines in. Are you proud? And giving their talents to the Lord every day. They both serve the Lord diligently and selflessly, and they still do it to this day. Sorry. That's why we write it down, so you remember it. My mom is actually here tonight. Hi, Mom. She's here worshiping and celebrating with us. Come on up. No, I'm just kidding. She doesn't have cards like I do. I wanted nothing more in my life than to be a mother and to devote my life to my children and give them the exact example that my parents had given me. I wanted nothing more in my life than to lead my children to Christ and have them live a Christ-focused life. Sorry, you guys. Girls. Very early on in my marriage, my husband, Nick, and I got some pretty devastating news. We were told that I wouldn't be able to have children. And honestly, I was shocked. It never crossed my mind that I would ever have to face that, ever. When I was growing up, it never occurred to me that I wouldn't be able to have children. I didn't really know anybody that had struggled with that. And so the issue just didn't occur to me, and we were heartbroken. We could not imagine our life without children. We felt completely helpless, and I felt guilty because it was my fault. Nick was totally fine. He was completely healthy, but it was my issue, and I was the reason why we couldn't have children. I felt like because I was the one that couldn't carry children, he didn't deserve that. He deserved for his lineage to go on. And I carried the guilt for a while, for a couple of years, and we navigated doctor's appointments and second opinions and specialists and until we were just told, you're not going to have children. It's not going to happen for you. And a few years into our marriage, I couldn't take the guilt anymore. I was pulling away from Nick. I was pulling away from the Lord. And I finally just went to him and I said, please leave me. It's not fair. We didn't know this when we got married. And you should be able to have children and have children of your own. And I know there's another woman out there. You're amazing and you're so good looking and you'll find somebody else. And of course, he was like, you're crazy. What's wrong with you? He refused to leave me, and I thought that he was just being chivalrous. And I started resenting him, honestly. I started getting really mad at him. And I decided to put a wall up and shut him out. And with that wall, I decided I would also put the wall up between me and God, because I realized I wasn't just mad at Nick. I was resenting my Savior. Christ formed me in my mother's womb. He knew exactly who I would be and who I would become. And he gave me my heart to be a mother, but he also broke my womb. And I couldn't square that circle. I didn't understand that. If he gave me such a desire to be a mother, how could he not let me be a mother? I mean, he could have given me the desire to be a chef or a pilot. Why did it have to be so innate in me to be a mother? And then to take that away from me, I felt like it was mean. I also was resentful because I was raised in his presence. I had been so faithful to him, and I believed his promises were true. And I felt like, I don't know, I guess I felt like I was being gaslit. I didn't really know. But in God's word, it says in Psalms that he heals the brokenhearted and he binds their wounds. And that verse hurt me because I thought my wounds are because of you, until I realized that his wounds were because of me. I decided to walk away. Nick and I stopped going to church. We lived away from our families, so nobody really knew. We hit the big Sundays, Easter, Christmas, Mother's Day, if we were home. But we threw ourselves into work and fun, having fun with each other and just playing and spending our money. And at the time, I wasn't an auntie yet, so not being a good auntie just yet. But a couple of years into that, having fun and completely ignoring God, we went to church on one of the big Sundays. And the verse that came up on the screen. I'd seen it for years. I'd memorized it. It was Romans 8:28, and maybe we have it. We may not have it. We know all things work for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And that hit differently that day because I thought, called according to his purpose. Oh, wait. Oh, you mean not my purpose? Oh, because I thought my purpose was what was supposed to be for my life. And that's when I realized that my life is God's life. I'm here for him. I'm here to serve him, and I wasn't. In fact, I was running as far away as I could. So Nick and I decided that we would rededicate our lives to Christ. We would start going to church, and we did. A couple of years after that, we decided that we would adopt. And private adoption's horrible. Anybody in here that's privately adopted, bless you. That is a tough journey and expensive. So we decided to foster, which also, if you fostered in here, bless you. That is a tough journey. And the Lord knew that I would not be able to let go of any children because I can't even let a puppy go. Like if I see a puppy or a cat, they're living with us. They are ours from now on. If they don't have a collar, I claim. Dibs. So the Lord knew that. And after we got our foster license, he placed 3 young children with us. They're very little. Actually, in the beginning, just 2. And then the third one was born and we got him. And the Lord knew that those kiddos needed us, and he never took them away from us. They're still in my home 12 years later. They won't leave. I'm just kidding. My children were born into a family that did not know Christ. In fact, the only way that my daughter knew, who was the only one that could talk when she came to live with us, the only way she knew God's name was to say it in vain, and that's what she had heard over and over her entire life. They were never going to be introduced to Christ, not in that family. If you have the privilege of knowing my children, and a lot of you do, you can immediately see God's purpose on their life. All 3 of them have a higher calling. Angel was up here singing tonight. She was the young one with the little glasses, cute little hair. That's my daughter. She's 17. She came to live with us right before she turned 5. Her brother Thomas came to live with us when he was 2.5. Thomas serves every single Sunday very faithfully in our little life. Rachel's very happy about it. His calling is kiddos. He loves kiddos, and kiddos love him because he's huge. And he's like a jungle gym. They just crawl on him, and he lets them. He loves it. And then our youngest son, Andrew, he came to us when he was 2 days old. He has such musical ability. He has been blessed by Christ to have musical ability, and you will see him very soon up here playing the drums. He's working with our worship pastor, Katie, right now on making sure that he can do that. These children, they are what God's purpose was for my life. A lot of times our purpose is completely different. God's purpose on our life is completely different than what we think it is.
That's so good. Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing. I have some questions for you.
Okay.
So we can dig a little deeper. You mentioned feeling unworthy of Nick's love earlier in your testimony. How did your marriage endure through the pain, and what advice would you give to couples or women here facing similar challenges?
That was really tough. I think for a while, Nick and I just ignored the fact that we were both in a lot of pain and that we were both really upset. We just kind of ignored it. We threw ourselves into work and our friends and living a fun life, and didn't want to focus on Christ's calling on our lives and that pain. The reason why is because for me, the enemy had convinced me that I deserved to be alone, that my infertility was my fault. It wasn't the way that God made me. It was possibly something that I did. And because of that, I was attacked constantly. Nick was attacked as well. But what we've learned through that is that it's so much easier to attack one person than it is to attack a group of people. And that's what Satan will do. Satan will pull you away from your group of Christ-believing friends in your church body to get you alone, because it's easier to whisper in your ear and have you listen to him when you're all by yourself. And that's what happened with Nick and I. We were both by ourselves, and we listened to that. Thankfully, though, our marriage endured, and I think the reason why it did is because Nick and I were both raised in Bible-believing Christian homes, and if you train up a child, when they grow old, they're not going to turn from those ways. The Bible tells us that, and thankfully, through the prayer of our friends and our family, Nick and I turned back to the Lord, and so he saved our marriage. My advice for ladies, if your marriage is being tested right now, or if you're going through something like this, don't give up. In fact, I challenge you to double down. That's what Satan doesn't want. He doesn't want you to double down. Double down on your faith. Double down and bet on your marriage. Continue to keep your eyes focused on your mate and on Christ.
That's great advice. So many times I feel like marriages are just, they give up on them too quickly. Like, keep fighting for your marriage. Next question. How has God's faithfulness led you to victory in ways you couldn't see at that time?
We really couldn't see what Christ was doing. We really didn't even know that Christ was, of course, he was working in our lives, but I didn't attribute it to that. The Lord put Nick and I through a lot of trials and tribulations and troubles in our marriage, but that was to strengthen us so that our foundation would be extremely firm on him. Looking back on it, it could not have been anything but God that lined everything up so perfectly for our adoption to happen. It couldn't be anything but him. He prepared us for the battle that we faced, and that was so that Nick and I would be strong with each other, be strong through the Lord. It takes a lot of endurance to adopt, specifically through foster care, and we didn't have that endurance prior to going through hearing that we were infertile. Well, I never would have explored adoption if I had had a child of my own, even one child of my own. I never would have explored adoption. And now looking back on it, that's the reason why the Lord closed my womb, is because he needed me to be the mother to these children. The Lord worked his purpose through us for good, victoriously.
Absolutely. So what words of encouragement would you share with someone here tonight who's facing heartbreak or unfulfilled desires?
Be strong and steadfast in his will for your life. Even if the enemy is attacking you, you are who Christ says you are. You're called for his purpose. You are beloved. You are chosen. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And you are a child of God. You are victorious in him. You may not know God's path for your life right now. It may not have been revealed to you, but trust him.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know this isn't easy, so can we all just give it up for Rebecca? How's everybody doing out there? Everybody good? All right. So next we have Justice. She's going to share her story with us.
Shake the nerves. Anyways, first off, I just want to say I'm so happy to see all these beautiful women out here. I prayed so hard for everybody that wanted to come would be able to come. So I just want to recognize that. Gosh, I didn't shake all the nerves. But anyways, okay. So like Rebecca said, I grew up in a Christ-following home. I mean, we read the Bible at night in my mom's bed. We knew Christ. We were christened in the church. We knew the Lord, and that's just how we were raised. So I guess it kind of hits hard whenever you are raised that way and you do know Christ. It's hard to explain, but it's crazy whenever you end up growing up. You almost just are kind of prone to figuring out, oh, what else is out there? Like, I know it's so good here, but like everybody else is doing this. It's so easy to just kind of be curious of the lifestyle out of your wonderful, beautiful shelter. Well, if you are raised that way, like, keep it that way, because I mean, you think it looks cool. It's not. It's so not cool. But anyways, let me get serious here. Because I will say, very early on, I was such a sensitive kid. At the drop of a hat, I would be crying, They'd be like, why don't you do this? And I'll be like, I'm sorry. I was like, I know. And they're like, it's not that big of a deal. And I was like, it's a big deal to me. Very, very early on. So, like, not only, like, in my family, but then whenever, I started going to public school because we were homeschooled. Homeschooling is amazing, by the way. It really helps. Woo! But then whenever I got into public school, it got real, because then I was like, oh, well, now all these other people are saying the same things, like really confirming the way I feel about myself, like that I shouldn't be doing these things, or my ADHD, or whatever it may be. I was like, wow, everybody's kind of agreeing, and they're right. Like I shouldn't forget things, or I shouldn't act this way, or like I just kind of fed into it and really let it consume my thoughts. And I will say that kind of just festered really through high school, I would say, which I feel like that's kind of the target these days, at least, is high school, and that's just kind of where you get attacked, I feel. So that's where it hit me the hardest, especially, like, I don't know if you know me personally, but I'm pretty goofy. I'm pretty goofy, and I'm just kind of just out there. I like to make you laugh. I like to make you smile. So that's kind of what I go for. Well, that's how I was in high school, if not emphasized, if you can imagine. So I was always a funny, loud kid, but I was so consumed with depression and anxiety. Like, I would go home and just bawl my eyes out in my room, and I just hated every little thing about myself. But in school, nobody knew that, and I didn't know how to tell anybody that, because it's like, oh, Justice, you're so funny, and you're so beautiful, and you're so amazing, and I'm like, thank you, but like, none of it hit. I was like, I'm just the worst human being. So that's why I like to tell some people, I mean, obviously you never know what anyone's going through, but that was one reason why I never felt comfortable to talk to anybody about it, is because I just had this image that I upkept for whatever reason. I was like, I don't have to be the funny person. I don't have to have it all together just because, people enjoy my company. Like, I can break down a little bit. So that definitely in high school did not get better. Right out of graduation, I got into an extremely toxic relationship. Yes, I did meet him in high school. Sucks. And then never do that. Don't date anybody in high school, I must say. But literally, period, don't do it. So we dated for 2.5 years, I will say. He made it a lot worse, I will say. Everything that already sucked was just multiplied every single day. And I really got off topic, but anyway. I knew that was going to happen, but anyways. So I like to tell some people, I'm like, this relationship was my own personal human relationship with the devil, is what it felt like. Because it was just everything in my head, he was just like confirming it. It was so cruel to me all the time. Like, I couldn't speak or do anything right ever. Everything was an error. Everything was a mistake. Everything I did was wrong. And since I was already so messed up, I was like, yeah, that's true. That sucks. And I just couldn't. I was smoking weed, I was staying out late, cussing. I hardly ever saw my family members or my sister. And when I did, I was kind of just like embarrassed of the life I was living. And for some reason, the enemy obviously had me right where he wanted me to be. And I couldn't talk to anybody about it at all. I just felt so ultimately helpless. And anyways, it was very hard. It was really hard. But anyways, I'm sorry. I know it's real, but I can't help but being goofy. That's how you cope, And where am I at right now? It was definitely being secluded from my family was probably the major flaw of it all. It was like, oh, as long as I get you away from like your family and where your roots are, the people that actually support you and care for you, as long as you're away from them, like I have you. He had me, in his hands. And I was really close. I was really close to making that permanent decision because I was just so lost. I was done. I felt ultimately defeated. And I will say, though, after the 2.5 very long, very horrible years that I was in that, I finally got out of it. I woke up one morning and I was like, I can't even do it anymore. It got to that point, us as women, I can't believe we do this, but we're like, I've got to that point, I'm leaving, Like we wait until we are physically unable to tolerate it. We are kind of amazing, by the way. It sucks, but we're amazing for being able, we're capable, but it also sucks. So I decided to move out with my sister. She's up here also. Hopefully you've had the pleasure of meeting her. If not, come find me, we'll introduce. I've been living with her for, I don't know, 2 years now? 2, yeah. About 2 years now, and it's just absolutely amazing. So just taking that step to move in with my sister, I was hanging out with her, hanging out with my family, already getting my foot out the door was just, at that point, I was 0 to 80. I still had a little bit, but I was that big jump. And even after that, I will say, I was still distancing myself from God. I think I was still kind of held on to the cussing and the staying out late and wanting to party, but less so, I guess, because I was I'm better now, but I'm it's nice to dabble, is kind of how it was, which was horrible. If anything, that's where I became lukewarm, which is disgusting. It's almost worse. It's worse than just not and believing in God, I guess. I don't know if I want to word it that way, but it is. It's oh, God, you're just choosing to run away from him. That's crazy. That's what I did. I know. I did that. It actually wasn't until beginning of last year, I believe. I honestly I don't know if I wrote it down, but it didn't happen overnight, I will say. But slowly but surely, just living with my sister and spending time at church and meeting people here and surrounding myself by people that believed in God and would pray for me, it hit me. I don't remember specifically how, but then I started realizing that I needed to be an example. I saw how sinful I was living, and something clicked, and I was everything became distasteful, the cussing and the drinking and the staying out. I was ew, that's kind of gross. He put that conviction in me, and he's yeah, you won't like that anymore. You had your time, you learned your lesson, now let's get real. And he did that pretty quick, because I was and even, some friends that obviously still know me from that period, I'm don't say that. Don't say that around me. If you want to live that way, fine. We'll get there later. Your time is coming. It came for me, it's coming for you too. But I'm don't say it around me. Don't act that way. Don't talk that way. I don't want to stay out that late. We're not watching that movie. Stuff like that. It trickles on down. And so when that happened, it just that's where I'm at. If anything, it's just grown. And I've just met more people, and I've just dove deeper. Is that a word? Yeah. I dove deeper into the Word, and I couldn't be better. Life is amazing. So, yeah, I think that's about it.
Justice, we're so glad that you're here, and I'm so thankful that we can be victorious because God is victorious, and we can see that in her testimony. That's amazing. You mentioned convictions that God started placing on your heart. Can you share an example of one that really shifted your life choices and direction?
I feel like one of the main ones probably that kind of started everything else, because I feel like everything eventually became a conviction, like, you know, the drinking, the smoking. I was like, you know, it became an issue, but living with a man premaritally was the main conviction. I feel like I was kind of just worldly blinded by it for a while, and even my mom, my amazing mother, she's also here. Oh my gosh, I love her so much. We used to have problems, but let me say, she's my best friend. Like, always listen to your parents. Like, I know you're like, you don't know anything. They know everything. Everything.
Everything.
And she's my best friend. I love her so much. Anyways, she'd be like, you're living with a man, like, you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, it's fine, you know, like, you know, we're not doing anything. We're just living together. We're basically roommates, you know. So that was definitely the main one, because it was just like, you're not married. You're not going to get married. So it's like, that was the main thing. Everything else just kind of went bad from there. But
Gotcha. So happy for convictions. We all need them in our life. What practical steps did you take to begin turning back to God after feeling so distant for so long?
I guess the main one would be, like I said, moving in with my sister. That was a huge step. That was, I wanted to do it for so long, and I think luckily I made an excuse. I was like, oh, I want to live with my sister, you know, the guy I lived with. And he's like, what? And I was like, I don't just, you know, I never got to. That was my reasoning. And it worked. He was not happy about it, but I was like, we never got to. We had this dream. We're still living the dream. It's awesome. But that step, because once I made the decision to move out with her, quick, oh my gosh, as soon as I was like, oh, you know, it's awesome. But as soon as I made the decision to move out with my sister, I saw my mom, my dad more, my family. I showed up to family events. People were like, wow, are you good? And I'm like, I'm here, you know, I'm doing amazing now. Don't ask questions. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But that was the main step. And then from then on, I just became kind of embraced with the love that I was rejecting for so long.
Wow.
So
good. So for those who are struggling with anxiety, depression, or toxic relationships here tonight, or who are still figuring out God's plan, what encouragement would you give to trust His power and keep moving forward to faith instead of slipping back into old patterns?
I know this question is such a good question. It took a while. It was in here for a long time. I was like, oh my gosh, because you want to just say the right thing. But I will say, when I was really, really at my lowest point, and I was just super depressed, just consumed with anxiety, looking back, you're like, well, you're surrounded by people that are really depressed and have severe anxiety. So obviously when you're in it, you're like, yeah, we're good friends. It's like, no, y'all are feeding off of each other's problems. Y'all are just kind of hand in hand going downhill. So I feel like when you are in that, the main thing is just seek help. I know it's hard. It's really hard. But I don't know, blindfold. Seek help. You need to find people that will pray for you and encourage you and uplift you and be real with you too. Because, if anything, I was just enabling myself to stay there because I had nobody. If anything, they were just dragging me down deeper. So, and then as far as moving forward and figuring out God's plan, I feel like I still kind of am here and there in certain aspects of my life. I know the main goal, which is just to spread His love and to reach people, make heaven crowded, of course. That is the end goal, of course. But as far as just if you're still kind of fresh to it, figuring it out, definitely just surround yourself with people that maybe you wouldn't so regularly want to hang out with. Maybe people that obviously aren't going to encourage your horrible behavior. It's like, those are the people you should probably be around, you know. I know it's hard, but you got to start somewhere, you know. Maybe don't just walk into a church and then you're like, I'm out of here. It's like, well, yeah. It's like, find one person, you know, and then just kind of just let that seed be planted, and then the rest will kind of follow from there. And it can be hard at times, but I mean, it's not really that hard whenever you know that God has your back. It's like everything's kind of easy from there on out. You're like, it's just a day. He's got us, you know? So you just got to reach that point. So, but it takes a while. Time. Just let yourself have time, for sure.
Time. That's very good. Thank you, Justice.
Thank you.
Everybody give it up for Justice. Next, we're going to hear from Katie. She's going to share her story with us.
I'm Katie. It's nice to see everyone here tonight. I'm super excited to be able to share at Sisterhood. So I'm just going to jump into the deep end. So a quick little introduction. I've been married to my husband. This July will be 14 years. And I have known my whole life that God has a calling on me and a purpose. However, there was a time that I forgot all those things. There was a time that I forgot that Jonathan was the person that God chose for me, the person I chose. So we're just going to jump in. In 2021, we were having a very, very hard year. We had so many things coming our way. My mother-in-law got sick. My dad got sick and almost died. Financial stuff happened with the businesses. We both, we own Meadville Hearing Aids, so we work self-employed. And it was like everything was falling on us at the exact same time. And honestly, it was overwhelming. And with all of that going on, Jonathan and I grew distant from each other. And I was not doing the things I should have been doing. I was not spending my time seeking God the way I should have been seeking. And because I was perfectly content in my worldly life, I was ignoring God. I was cutting him off. I was completely running from him. So with all of that happening, really it all came to a boiling point. And I looked my husband right in the face and told him I was leaving him. And I was going to divorce him. And he looked at me and said, I'm sorry, which makes me emotional because I wanted the anger. I wanted him to yell at me. I wanted him to fight with me about it because I wanted that. I wanted it to fuel that fire. You know, I was leaving. I decided I was leaving. But instead, he looked to me with grace and mercy and just an apology, which is the last thing I was expecting from that moment. But I didn't care. I was done. And with us working at the job together, he asked me, well, can you please keep working because I don't have anybody else, but I won't talk to you. And I said yes. Looking back, that absolutely breaks my heart that my husband would say, please keep working, but I won't talk to you. And immediately in all of that, Jonathan started reaching out to friends. We had gone to Bible college together, and he reached out to everybody he knew, and he was like, guys, Katie's running. Katie's running from God. She's throwing it all away. She's wanting to throw the marriage away. And he said, please pray for her. And I could immediately feel something happening. I could feel God working on me. But still, I was ignoring it. You know, you don't care in that moment when you are completely turned off from the Holy Spirit. So because we were still working together, we actually work in Fort Smith. We were riding together, and Jonathan turned on Christian music, just a radio station. He didn't pick anything out. And I had my AirPods. And looking back, in the moment, I was so mad. Looking back, it's hilarious. But I was like, I'm not listening to this. I grab my AirPods, I go to put them in, and I drop one. And it was like that sucker disappeared, okay? I could not find it anywhere. And unfortunately, because I could now hear the music, I just took the other one out and I was forced to listen. Little did I know, God was always there in everything. And so I had to listen to it. I had to listen to it. That sounds funny saying that. But it was the first time that I heard You Keep Hope Alive. And I just listened to it. And there were so many other songs that came on too, but that one specifically just, it was like a balloon had been blown up, and it was like there was a little pop, and like the air was slowly coming out. But I was still doing everything in my power to keep that bad boy blown up because I was mad. But no, I heard the song, and he could, your husband knows you, he could tell I liked the song. And so he would, play it when we would drive. And God was just doing a work, and I didn't know he was, but he was. And people started reaching out to me that I hadn't heard from in forever, and I was like mad. I'd go in the back room, and I'd be like, "Did you tell this person?" He was like, "No, I haven't talked to anybody there." And once again, it was just God. And so we're driving to Conway, and first driving to Fort Smith, I said, "Hey, can we play You Keep Hope Alive?" And he was like, "Yeah." But I would not sing it. I was like, that's my line. I'm not going to sing it. So we're driving to Conway, and it comes on the radio, and I start listening to it, and I start singing it. And I just looked over at Jonathan, and he's just crying, and I'm crying. And I remember him telling me afterwards, when we unpacked so much, he said, "I was just praying that you would sing it, because I knew if you would worship him, you couldn't be running from him, that you couldn't deny him when you're worshiping him." And he was right. And it just started to continue the healing, and the healing in our marriage, and his faithfulness, Jonathan's faithfulness, and God's faithfulness to be there and to fight. I believed that the right decision was to throw it all away. I get the privilege and honor of leading worship here at this church, and to think that the enemy wanted me to run away from that, running away from my calling, run away from my marriage. And it was hard, but the healing process started, and God was so faithful in so many ways. And looking back, as we talk about those things that happened, Jonathan praying and fasting for me, and the people in my life praying for me, I don't know what our story would be if I would have run away and left completely. But what I do know is I have a testimony of victory. And we were victorious. I was victorious in my own walk. We were victorious in our marriage, and it was all through God. And so when I think about that word victorious, I wear this shirt proudly because I do have a testimony of victory. And Jonathan makes me a better person every day. And he makes it where I can be who God's called me to be. So yeah.
Made for this. It's like you were made for this. Okay, so what would you say to someone here tonight who feels numb or distant from God but doesn't know how to come back to him?
So, this answer is funny because, I just said Jonathan makes me better every day. As I was going over this with him, I was bouncing off my answers, and he was like, "Yeah, but what about this?" And so he helped me, think about this. But honestly, do it anyway. When you're numb and you feel distant, you don't want to, but you have to, and I fought it, and I didn't want to, but I chose to, after that first time when Jonathan turned the music on, and that kind of is my same thing. Sometimes other people have to fight for you, and that's also okay. Sometimes you don't want to, and you have the other people fighting, and that was the catalyst, him fighting for me to get to the point where I was like, okay, I got to listen to this worship music. I've got to read my Bible. I've got to pray. I've got to spend time with him. And so leaning on the people that are around you that are faithful to pray for you, but also just doing it even when you don't want to.
So good. So, how did Jonathan's response and faithfulness reflect God's love and impact your healing process?
So, in the moment, you don't know what that response means. But honestly, it was really the catalyst for my healing. If he would have responded in anger or frustration, I was ready to leave. Like, I was like, fine. But his response of, I'm sorry, and, finding people to pray for me. And I feel like it showed the mercy and grace that God has for us when we are breaking his heart and we're not doing the things that we should do. And then listening to that still small voice, afterwards when Jonathan and I would talk about it, he would say, I felt like my world was crashing down around me. You were leaving, you said you were done, but he goes, I can't explain to you the loudness of God's still small voice telling me what to say and how to respond. And if he hadn't have been faithful to do that and to respond that way, that just plays so much into where we are today. And I think seeing that faithfulness and his choice to obey God's word and God's guidance and the Holy Spirit's guidance showed me how just merciful God is and how he is always there with arms wide open saying, come back.
So good. So how do you keep your faith strong now, even when life gets hard, and what helps you stay close to God and be victorious?
Just spending time with him. As I looked over that time of my life, I realized there were things that I was doing and things that I was putting into my heart and my mind that were feeding this negative side. They weren't feeding my relationship with him. And so I had to cut those things out and say, no, I'm not gonna read that. I'm not gonna watch that. I'm not gonna listen to that. And then switching that with books and of course the Bible and just worship songs that uplifted me and continued to build my faith. And in fact, just as I was meditating over this, I came across the scripture. I don't think it's up, but it's Romans 12:12. And I just thought with my story, it just fit so perfectly. And it says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. And I thought, all of those things, we have the hope that we can make it through anything, but affliction will come, and we have to be patient and lean on him. And then faithful in prayer, praying for yourself, praying for others, having the people around you pray for you. I just felt like that was the perfect little cherry on top as I was getting ready for this is Romans 12:12. Joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer.
That's so good. It's very important to surround yourself with people that will lift you up. Just from Justice's story and Katie's story, it's very important to be around people that are encouraging to you. Thank you, Katie, for sharing. Everybody give it up for Katie.
Okay, so first of all, I'm sorry I don't have the fancy little note cards filled out because I am too ADD to fill that out and not leave out a million words. Plus, I'm old. I'm probably the oldest one up here, and I'm losing my eyesight. So if you want to see the font size that I need, there was not enough cards. I'm just telling you. So, and I'm not very coordinated. But and I did say I have ADD, so we're sisters. And it gets worse with age. It's bad. Plus, I'm pretty sure I have anesthesia brain. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but I've been under anesthesia 3 times in the last 7 months, and yeah, bless my family. Pray for them. How do I get the keyboard to go away? Oh, fancy. The only other issue is that the whole time I was holding it, I was pushing buttons, and so, anyway. Okay, can you make it go away? How's that keyboard going? Yeah. Thank you, baby. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to try to be good, and I'm probably just going to straight up read it, because if I don't, we're going to go down so many rabbit holes, y'all will be here till 9 o'clock. So, I'm just going to stick to reading this. Is that okay? Okay. And, sorry. Okay, the most important thing that I want to be what you hear from me tonight is that I am just honored to have this opportunity to share. This is called my But God. So several times you're going to hear me say, But God, because he just kept showing up. This is about my cancer journey. It has been amazing. And I know that sounds stupid, but it has been so victorious. I was not going to cry. Okay, but I want God to receive all the glory and all the honor. You can just prop it on up here. If you know me, I have depression and anxiety also. So we tend to overthink everything. Yeah, it's exhausting. So this should have been the thing. Like, you're told you have cancer. Like, it's awful, right? It wasn't for me. I had such a peace. Like, I knew before they ever even found it that I had it. And he just told me, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Listen to me. Do what I tell you to do. And you're going to be fine. Sorry, Grace. In Brooklyn. And Jana. My first prayer, was that, Father, if it is your will, then I really don't want to be done on earth. I want to be here for my family. But ultimately, if my time is done, then I'm okay with that because I know it's your will, not mine. So I just felt so much peace, like deep in my soul, like I have never felt before. That's why I'm grateful for this journey. Because he chose to answer my prayers and the prayers of so many beyond my wildest imagination. I am just so in awe. Like, I've been in awe of God pretty much my whole life. But this was just a whole nother level of an experience. So before I get into the nitty-gritty dirt details, which I don't want to be the focus, because everybody's hardships, medical hardships, financial hardships, whatever your hardships are, they're just different, And so I do feel like I do need to share some details, because I feel like there may be someone that just needs that. So I just believe that God wants to give you a but God journey also. I believe and I know that because of this evil world that we live in, that everyone's going to go through hardships, right? And so he just wants to be there in it with us. He wants us to invite him, and he wants us just to lay it all at his feet. So anybody else that's like me, as in someone who feels completely unworthy of his mercy, this testimony is for you. Sorry, I shouldn't sniff in that. I also believe that he wants you to remember Philippians 4:5-7, and paraphrased, he tells us, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, and through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And then the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I focused on that, as well as all the time saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. That's Luke 22:42. All right, so here we go. But God. So as I stated before, my cancer, I think I said it, I don't know if I did or not. My cancer journey began about 7 months ago. God chose to use my husband to find the cancer, which was exciting and interesting.
It was deep inside some new scar tissue. And even that was so weird because I had a hysterectomy back in 2012, back in 2012. And since then, I was no longer having cysts that ruptured that left scar tissue. I had never been told I had any new scar tissue since then. I was getting mammograms every year. I also had a previous benign one, a lumpectomy, in 2020. But it was so odd because of that I was just like, but God. Like, if we wouldn't have had that lump of scar tissue, we would have never known. I mean, we would have eventually, but it very likely could have been too late, and it would have been a whole different story. He knew it would take that lump for us to notice and seek medical attention. And but God, like, we are so blessed to have the family of the Noonans and their physicians, because they're such a blessing. But so they immediately referred us to Baptist Hospital because that's where I had been going, and it was 4 months before, so I was like, we can probably just wait 4 months and I can just go when I've already got it scheduled. No, Heather, go ahead and let's just go ahead and rule it out. And I'm like, okay, But they, the doctors there said that they would not have found it near this early without us coming and going, it's right here. The lump is right here. So they, it did not show up on the mammogram. It did not show up when she started doing that ultrasound wand thing on me. But I told her, I said, it's there. And she was like, okay, I'll keep looking. She was, and that's another but God moment. Like, he gave us this technician that respected her patient enough to not go, woman, you don't know. You're not a doctor. But I could just tell that she could feel the Holy Spirit in me saying, it is. So she was diligent at her job, and she was listening and respecting her patient, and so she kept digging. And I'll just tell you, when it popped up on the screen up there, she was like, oh my gosh, there is something there. And I was like, I told you, And no, I wasn't boastful like that, but it was just confirmation because I knew. I already knew. So the radiologist, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk faster. The radiologist came in to talk to us, and she was very concerned. She was like, we need to get this biopsied as soon as possible. It is very concerning looking. And I was like, yes, ma'am. We made an appointment. 1 week later, we had the vacuum biopsy thing where they suck it out of you. Waited 24 hours before they called. And I just remember when I got that call that I didn't even need the call. I already knew. And so, and I just know that's him going before and preparing me, because I'm an anxious person who gets depressed and overthinks. And so he just chose to intervene, so that was not my experience. So, in addition to that, my oncologist, my medical oncologist that I went to Baptist to see, he retired, and I had no idea what to do or where to go. But God, yep. As soon as my precious daughter-in-law, Brooklyn's mother, her name's Kim, as soon as she found out about my diagnosis, she was right there for me. She had a recent journey. She wanted to love on me and help me. And she was like, I've got great doctors up here in Northwest Arkansas. And Shane was like, thank goodness I do not like going to Little Rock. So that was just perfect. And I'll tell you, all three of those doctors were just God sent for me and for her. And, I've gone through 3 surgeries now. And just such peace. And I also knew before they told me that it was cancer, because I knew it was cancer, that if it was cancer, which it was going to be, that I was going to make the radical decision to just say, take them big old things off of me and throw them in the trash. Like, give me some new little perky thingies. I'm like, just get them gone. You know, because we have that option now. You know, used to when my granny had her double mastectomy, they didn't have the reconstruction office. You know, she used to wear the bras with the big cushy things in them, which made real soft hugs. Mine are not soft anymore. But, you know, we have that right. And I feel like a lot of women, this is part of what I think God wants a few women to hear. And like I said, I don't know if your hardship's happening now or if it's coming soon or if it's later. But we get to choose what we want. I don't know if there's a doctor out there that would have ever said, hey, Heather, you should consider a double mastectomy. Or they call them bilateral, it's fancy words. Because it was tiny, and it was stage 1. Like, just do the lumpectomy and probably some radiation. I had already found one in 2020, and it was benign. Now we're in 2024. It was in September, and it's not benign. And I just was like, you know what? I only have a peace about letting them go. Like, I'm old. Nobody cares anymore anyway. You know, so, oh, sorry. I need to focus. See, there I went. So sorry. Okay. I already said all that. Look at me. I'm doing good. I do want to say, you know, that my decision to do that may not be your decision, but I was a lot less scared of the surgery and what it was all going to look like than doing the chemical stuff. Like, I've talked to enough people that I know that radiation can leave very long-term damaging effects and symptoms, and I was just like, you know, it sounds perfect to me. Just go in there, get them gone, stick some new ones on, and let's rock and roll. And so that was mine, but everybody else, you know, you have your own. And again, I just knew myself as an overthinker, depressive, anxiety type person, that if I keep these, like, the whole time I was like, you hadn't checked this one? This one may be eat up with something. Like, y'all never even checked it. We're going to fix this one, and we don't even know what's going on over here. Like, no, just get them gone, because Satan would have had a foothold that he would have ran with if I would have kept them, because they were like, you have to come every 6 months. They're super dense. We have this new machine that's called an A-bus that you're going to have to get A-bus scans now because the mammograms don't work on you, and apparently the ultrasounds don't either. No, I did not want to live my life 6 months to 6 months to 6 months waiting on the next scan to find out if I did or I didn't have it again. Like God can use me so much more if I'm not living in that horrid mindset. Because without him, that's where I would have gone, and that's where I would have stayed. So, if anybody else wants more details, I'm an open book, and I will tell you anything and everything you want to, even the gross stuff. I'll even show you pictures. Like, I don't care. So, I'm going to stop there about my specific story. But what I believe is that what's most important is whether your hardship is happening right now or if it comes later, he wants you to know that he cares for you more than you could begin to fathom. Like, it is uncomprehendable for us as humans to understand the breadth and the depth of his mercy and grace and his love for us. He wants to invite him into your journey, no matter what it is. He wants you to be faithful in trusting him enough to just take it to him and do everything you can to leave it in his hands. It's so hard for especially those of us that want to control everything. It's virtually impossible. But just allow his will to be done. I feel like so many people pray for miracles of healing, and by golly, he can do it. He is capable of doing anything. But I think growing up, like, I always thought if I didn't get that miracle healing, then it was because I didn't have enough faith. It's because that wasn't the path that he chose for me. Okay? So I don't want y'all to let Satan in your heart tell you that you're not worthy, because you are. I actually had a very good Bible verse, I think, that I left out. I'm so sorry. Where was it? Oh, it was going to be on the board, and it's not. Can I read it real fast? Okay. Oh, fiddle diddle. Oh, I did. It's on here. Sorry, that's why Grace had me bring this. Thank you, Gracie. In case it all didn't end up on the iPad, and it did not, because she said don't put that extra stuff on there or you'll get confused and read it, which I would have. But the verse that I clung to that speaks to me wholeheartedly is Isaiah 40:31. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And the lyrics to the song that I clung to was Waymaker, Waymaker, Miracle Worker, Promise Keeper, Light in the Darkness. Like, oh, is it up there? Oh, y'all did so good. Thank you. Sorry, Eden, I didn't know you were putting it up there. But that is, I think that's all. I'm going to be quiet. I'm sorry, I think I went over.
No, you did wonderful. And I don't know that you mentioned this, but let me know if I shouldn't say something, but I actually hesitated to ask you to be on the panel because you just recently had a surgery, and so I didn't want to overextend you, but Heather wanted to be on the panel. She said, you know what, I think that I can tell my story and it will speak to someone, and so I'm so glad you're here, and thank you so much. I do have a couple questions. You mentioned the importance of having people praying for you. How did that community support shape your journey, and what would you say to someone walking through hardship without that support right now?
Yeah, I don't know if I actually said that part or not, but I was going to. Did I say that part about, I kind of hit on it a little. I think, I know that not only did I have such a peace because God was going before me and all of those but God moments, but from the moment we found out, like just the love that came in, like y'all, my students were praying for me. Just the support, just knowing that if I was struggling, and I was like, nope. God's got me covered, and my brothers and sisters Christ have me covered. Like, I'm good. And it just gave me such a peace and a comfort to know that God loved me enough to not only bless me with his presence, but to bless me with so many others, loving on me by lifting me up in prayer. So,
you've also shared so many but God moments. How have those shaped your understanding of what it means to live victorious in your faith?
You know, I was reminded of this for my third surgery. Like, take them off, put them back on. All of that's super great. Well, then I had a flat tire. The rim, the wheel came off the rim. The rim broke. So they had to, which is mesh stuff, I don't know. So they had to go back in because she was down and left. So we had to go back in and get that fixed. And like before that, like every time you go under anesthesia, like do you have a living will? Do you have your what is other fancy stuff? I don't know. Healthcare power of attorney and all. No, like do people really have that when they're 51? Like I don't know. No. But before that third surgery, Satan started taking root. He started putting in those doubts. And my uncle sent me his that I'm on. And so I thought, you know what? I probably should be a responsible wife and mother and do this. So literally 2 days before my surgery, I'm filling out. I'm copying off of his. I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm putting my name where his name is and yada, yada on the living will and healthcare power of attorney for people making decisions. You know, just go ahead and take the life support. I'm good. Those kind of things. But every time I started doubting and questioning, he would just remind me of those but God moments. Like, bruh, I did this for the first and second surgery and we had no problems, and now you're going to have an issue because they got to go in and fix the rim? Like, what's up with you? You know, and so that would be it. Like, that drew me even closer to him because, you know, through this victory, you know, he just reinforced my acknowledgement of his unwavering love and mercy and just amazingness. You know, just that sinner me, very much still a sinner and struggle every day, is worthy of his love and his grace and his miracle working hands through those doctors. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you.